That is it, guys. That is the entire reason. Thank you for watching. No, but in all seriousness, that is actually just one of the reasons. Though, to be frank, I would absolutely confidently consider that reason being enough of a reason to never want to retire or stay in Australia for the bulk of your life, for that matter. And of course, that reason being the fact that house prices are so unaffordable here in Australia. But of course, guys, as mentioned, that is just one of the reasons that over the past few years, namely the last 9 months or so, that I've been able to conclude that it makes absolutely no sense for not only me, but for most people to retire in Australia. Now, I'll just quickly state all the non-Australians watching this video is completely relevant to you if you are from a high income and then therefore generally a high cost country. Now, for those of you that are new here, my name is Nicholas. This is Aussie Moneyman. You can check the description down below during the video. Scroll through. We've got Facebook groups linked to the website, a free ebook explaining on how I make money from market research. So that's generally something like $50 to $120 for 1 hour of my time. You do actually need to be an Australian citizen to do a bunch of those. So sorry for those of you that aren't Aussies watching this. All right, so let me just start off by saying I'm absolutely genuine about this. I have no intention of retiring in Australia. And in fact, I have no intention of spending much of my life in Australia. In fact, I'll be heading overseas probably in a number of months to go live in different countries, namely in the EU, and I'll explain why soon in this video. I'll be going to a lot of depth as to the reasons why and the reasons I'm going to particular countries as well. But the point here is just to make it really clear that I'm 100% serious about this and I will be living this life soon, and I want to give you guys some insight on my decision. Alright, so for the sake of not stringing you guys along the whole video to get the main point, that is what all of this is predicated on, and basically what that is, what the premise of all this is that the living costs in countries like Australia, like Canada, like the USA, all these, high income but also high living or cost of living cost countries are not justifiable. Okay, so alright, so let's just start by looking at the indexes, right? So the index of every country's cost of living versus the quality of living, right? Which is made up of things like climate, it's made up of things like pollution, it's made up of things of like how long your commute is, the crime rates, the pollution rates, the quality of goods and services. So basically what we find is there is a difference there, but it's not quite proportional. So already there is opportunity for what people call geographical arbitrage. There's already an opportunity to, be someone from a high income country and go to one of these countries and be advantaged. And not insignificantly, like some of these countries have half the cost of living. Like that means you could work half the amount of years. And I'll elaborate more on that in a second. But where it gets really interesting is when you realize that, of course, these rankings are assuming that you're living in that country and you were born in that country and all those sorts of things. So as in you're working and you're living there, and that's how the sort of ratios are made out, which basically means, if you're someone from one of these high income countries, you would take, the amount of income that they're making, their disposable income out of it, because that makes up a big part, these weighted sort of averages, these weighted numbers, statistics, factors, I should say, variables that make up these quality of life rankings. You take that out of it, right? Because that doesn't apply to you. Right, because you're not generally not going there to work. That's why the title of this video is retire, right? But what I need to clarify as well is that this doesn't apply to people to retire. This applies to people that have location independent businesses, etc. So people like myself. But getting back to the point, basically, once you take that out of it, what you actually end up finding is that the quality of life in a lot of these countries, so the quality of life in countries like Australia, is not only the same as a lot of these countries that have half the cost of living and sometimes even more, but sometimes the quality of life is even better. But only once you take out the fact that the incomes, you take out the variable of their disposable income, because that's a big part of quality of life, which makes sense. But for people that are going there to retire, for people that have location independent businesses, it actually makes no sense to live in Australia, which is the main point. That is the point of all this. And while I'm about to go into all the advantages and disadvantages and all the complicated things that I've, looked at, analyzed over the last few months, if not years, I just wanted to sort of give this part to you guys now, so that way you're not sort of being strung along for the whole video, and then we can get into all the technicalities in a second. All right, so now that I've dropped a few of those bombshells on you, let's just really look at what that factor means. To the one that I mentioned earlier, having, let's just say, even half the cost of living. That could mean that you end up working half the amount of years. Like, just think about that. So if you start working at 20 and most people retire at 65, right? So let's just say 40 years, you're working 40 years. That could be 20 years, right? Or you could work the same amount of years and have double disposable income, double the quality of life, right? Because again, the baseline quality of life is going to be the same, if not slightly higher in a lot of these other countries. Even if it's slightly lower, it doesn't matter. But again, most of these are the same, if not slightly higher, for half the cost. I just can't, I don't know how to express the significance of that with words. Now, of course, I do acknowledge this is different for people in different situations. If you go there to work a job, I will use Poland as an example. Their income is much lower as well, so it's not advantageous. But again, I'm talking to people that are going to save up a bunch of money and go live there, go retire, and you can do that very bloody young with the cost of living in these places. And again, you're not sacrificing quality of life. And we'll talk about the disadvantages in a second and things that you do sacrifice. But overall, it's a pretty bloody good deal. And again, I wouldn't be going and doing it if I didn't think it was a good deal. But of course, there are plenty of other factors that go into that. And we'll talk about that right now as we talk about the advantages and then disadvantages, which of course, as mentioned, will include a lot of those downsides that I know people are going to want to comment down below telling me why I'm wrong. And we'll cover those. And if I miss any, feel free to comment. I'm happy to hear them. I actually want to hear them. Of course, that's why I'm researching this. And of course, partly why I'm sharing it with you as well, to get your guys' thoughts and of course to educate and help you. So with that said, please do hit like on this video if it has helped. Of course, I'm sharing a lot of research with you guys and a lot of personal matters as well. If this is something that you think will inspire someone else or help someone else out, feel free to share this video with them. Maybe you guys can go off to another country together and have a lot more time. All right, so let's start with number one, the one that you guys all expected and what I've touched on before, which is just the fact it is much cheaper to live. I could go to Malta, for example, and live with 15% of the cost, but I could also go to countries like Poland and have 50% less cost and an equal, if not better, cost of quality of life, which of course is not insignificant. Like, that is the sort of thing we all aim for financial freedom for, or at least you should. Of course, most people just want to get rich and have money for the sake of impressing others and all that, and you have a very, very bad mindset if that's the case, or for your own ego, which again probably comes down to impressing people, which again, mindset. But for most of us, we want financial freedom so we can do the things we love. And if going to another country means you have literally double the amount of time to learn music, to spend time with your kids, to get really fit, to learn how to dance, to learn how to sing, to do all the things that you want to do, all the creative things you want to do, all the reaching your potentials, all the things that you can do to reach your potential, which I really truly believe is a huge contributor to people's happiness and the amount of regrets that they have when they're older. So that is a big point. That is just the cost of living is way lower. Number two, possible tax benefits. So countries like Australia, USA, Canada, etc. actually also have way higher taxes than these countries. Looking at a lot of these countries, they have like 12, 16% tax rates. Here in Australia, on the sort of income at least, you'll be making if you're in the higher brackets, you're going to be on up to 50%. And for those of you, on sort of the median or average incomes, you're going to be paying 30, 40%. And that's what most Australians are paying, which is just absolutely insane when compared to these other countries. So that right there could be another 15 to 35%, every year, every month of money in your pocket that otherwise would have went to taxes, again, for the same, if not worse, quality of life. So like, you guys are starting to get an idea of how significant this actually is. All right, so another advantage would just be the experience, so a big one would be the fact that Australia is really geographically isolated. So if you go to somewhere like Europe, which is where I plan on going, or where I will be going, you're going to be a lot closer to all the other countries, so travel's a lot cheaper, which leads me on to sort of the main point here, because I'm not going to go into every little particular point. I don't like to waste time with things like that. You guys know that, and that is that it's a new experience. You're going to meet new people, new culture, new food. It's going to be a really, really, really interesting and new experience for you. And as a very experience-obsessed society, I think this is a big, big positive. All right, so I could concentrate on the positives for a very long time and elaborate just on the first 2 points for a very long time, but I won't. I'll jump into the disadvantages. So number one, and people's biggest one, understandably, is going to be family. Okay, and again, this is why I mentioned it depends on your circumstances. Can you bring your whole family with you? If you care enough for it and you want the advantages, yeah, the answer is yes. For most people, you can do that, despite the fact that most people make excuses, like in all instances, and some people certainly can't. But for most people, they can. So you can bring your family with you. But yes, that is something that's going to make it harder. If you're someone who's, I'll use myself as an example, who's young, doesn't have a partner, doesn't have kids, isn't particularly close with their family, again, it's just like, that's not really much of a contributing factor as to why I wouldn't go. And the next one would be friends. Okay, again, bring your friends with you. Why not? You go together, you're going to make new friends. Most people change friends over their lifetime. There's a lot of reasons why that isn't that significant. But again, I'm not trying to downplay that is a disadvantage. You will miss your friends. And as someone who, has moved down to Canberra from West Sydney, where all my friends are, for about a year now, I know what that's like. And look, I didn't find it particularly significant, but for different people, it may be significant. All right, so another one, of course, is visa, citizenship costs, flight costs, etc. I think, this sort of insignificant in the sense that these are all really just cost things and slight time things, but with the amount of time and cost that you're going to save by going, you can sort of just eliminate these, though there's something to consider. And for example, having EU citizenship, or I'm about to have EU citizenship, this isn't too much of a problem, visas, etc., which is why I said it depends on your situation. So another one may be healthcare. So again, I've got EU citizenship, so I will go to an EU country mainly for that reason, plus the fact I need to worry about visas and all that, and there's a lot of attractive countries there. In fact, if you're interested, basically what I found is the Africas are a no, the Americas, there's a few good places, Southeast Asia and Asia in general, there's a lot of good places. Oceania, absolutely not. So Oceania being New Zealand and Australia, at least by my definition. And basically Europe having the most attractive countries by chance, which works out well. But anyway, back to the point, healthcare may be an issue depending on where you go, what your citizenship statuses are, etc. All right, so another one is just, your assets, if you own a house, etc., your car, you're gonna have to sell them or ship them over, probably best to sell them, but that's up to you, so that is something to consider. Of course, there's all these things like, settling costs, there's your taxes, your banks, phones, driver's license, all those sorts of things. But again, I really think that they're sort of like negligible in the sense that once you take into account all the benefits, they're not going to take up that much time or money, but it is something to consider. And finally, I've just got the sort of emotional toll and all that, and just the time to sort of settle and all those sorts of things, because of course it's going to take quite some time to get into your routines and all that. Being someone who's moved houses, 8-9 times, if not more, I know that every time I move houses, it's really hard to get back into your routines, whether that be your fitness routines, your eating habits, your work habits, everything, sleep schedule. It really, really messes things up. So that's just something to consider as well, particularly if you're someone who wants to be like a true nomad, I suppose, and jump from place to place. But my plan more so is just to find a country that I like, within the EU in my case, and just make myself comfortable out there. But who knows, I might end up in some of the Southeast Asian countries. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this offered some value. I think this is a really significant thing. I've wanted to share it for some time, and I'll be sharing more videos like this soon, more videos on my research, which is of course how Aussie Money Man started and what we do here all together. But just some of the more significant things that aren't directly related to personal finance, I suppose. They're a lot broader than that, but it's just about thinking big, so I suppose they are very relevant to personal finance, but it's not the sort of things people would expect, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. All right, so another sort of similar video that I have coming out about this is sort of my 3 top picks for the countries I want to go to. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. And another one is how I could actually retire right now at age 20 if I wanted to, in explaining all the numbers, how I've worked that out, and whether or not I plan to do that as well. So obviously I have just recently left my job with the federal government at age 20 and 2 months, which is quite significant. So that's something to let me know if you're interested in down below. Thanks very much for watching. Please do hit like on this video. Please do subscribe, hit notification bell, leave a comment with your thoughts, and feel free to share the video. You don't have to do all those things, whichever ones are relevant to you do. But I think the most important one would be to subscribe so you don't miss any of the future videos. Thanks for watching.